Welcome to the Femalepreneur Coach podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Barr. I am a transformational mindset and business coach and six-figure award-winning female entrepreneur. Ladies, I'm here to tell you that business and making money doesn't have to be hard when you're in alignment and flow. Inside this podcast, I will be showing you how to transform your mindset to program it for success, how to maximize your money vibrations, and how to redesign your business for ultimate financial and time freedom. You know you are meant to live an epic life. Now it's time to claim it. Hello, ladies. Welcome to another episode of the Femalepreneur Coach podcast. Oh, that had trips on that then. I'm today joined by a very fabulous client and friend, Anna. She is a mindset coach, but she's also a previous client. We just went through the 10 weeks to 10K launch group coaching program together, and she had the most fascinating backstory ever. And I really felt a connection with a lot of the stuff that you were talking about and what you're obviously now launching in your business. So I'm really excited that you've spared me the time today to join me for my podcast. I think you're going to add so much value for my listeners. So thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm always happy to talk to you about it, like all kind of subjects.
Where are you again in the world? Is it Holland?
Yes, I live in Amsterdam.
Great.
Yes.
My geography is so bad. I don't want to insult you, but I'm pretty sure it's Holland. Yes. Oh, amazing. So international, no less, which I love as well. That's bringing a whole nother layer to my podcast. International guests. So thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind, Anna, just starting initially with just kind of explaining to the ladies that are listening right now your journey, because that to me is just something that really fascinated me when we first started working together.
Yeah, no worries. I started out as a little girl who loved gymnastics, and I was pretty talented at it. So the hours increased gradually. And at some point when I was 12, I was training 23 hours a week and was selected into the first national team for the youngsters with the goal to go to the 2008 Olympics. That's where my journey started, basically. And when I quit my elite career shortly thereafter, I think it was when I was 13, 14, I just didn't know. I didn't know anything about the world, basically. I was living, as we say in Dutch, underneath a stone, not knowing anything about what the world was about, how to behave, what values were normal, what things were normal, because in elite sports, you could imagine that there's a lot of pushing your boundaries, pushing your limits, especially in gymnastics. It's a very hard sport and very harsh sometimes. There was things that I didn't learn as a gymnast. I'll come around to things I did learn and I now use in my business. But these are the things I really struggled with. So when I went back into the normal world, as I call it, I just was really confused and I didn't know what to do with myself. Basically, I really had to figure it out on my own and really do that transformation on my own, and took me a lot of years, but now I really found my own identity, which was something I also really struggled with, because with elite sports, your identity is created around you and the sport. Everyone knew me as Anna the gymnast, and all of a sudden I was Anna without gymnastics, and everything I had achieved was within gymnastics. All the goals, all the medals, the things, the national team for youngsters.
Isn't it? Yeah,
definitely.
That's definitely something that really interests me, because I don't think that the average person understands the commitment to that sport and excellence. But also, even if you haven't had, we're not all Olympic, elite athletes, But I am sure that there have been places in your life. I said what I resonated with your story most was being in a corporate setting where that is essentially your identity. Like, you're only successful if you're a certain position within a company, and then it's the expectations of delivering on that job and not being able to step out of the confines of what people are telling you is okay. So what, just a very small example, but for me, as soon as I left corporate, the first thing I did was went and got tattoos, because it was just, it's that expression of me and my journey. And I'm always a person that's quite a free spirited person and loves things that are a little bit quirky, but it wasn't something that I could ever express in the corporate setting. It would have been very frowned upon. So that was almost like, for me, a symbolic act of, you know, this is my defiance. But I'd love to know, so what would a typical week look like for you, so people can really understand what you were going through at, and obviously for me as a coach, it's, and also as a mother, it's so alarming because those years that you're talking about. So did you say that you essentially retired from sports at 13?
No, I did.
Oh,
I retired from elite gymnastics when I was 13, 14.
yeah,
I'm a very
carried
sports
on.
and active person. So I did
Yeah,
engage in a lot of other sports, but I started again gymnastics when I was 19, 20 for a year, quit again, and then started again when I was 22-ish. And I
yeah.
did it for another 3 years and then completely quit it. Yes.
Yeah, God, I can't even imagine my daughter does gymnastics, and you know, God, the stress that that puts on the body. But
Yeah,
even having seen some of the old school style of coaching, I was really conscious as a parent that it wasn't something that I wanted to really go into for her age, because it's such a formative year. So obviously, as a coach, between the
definitely.
ages of 7 and 13, where you're talking about, that's really where you get your sense of identity. Sorry about the noise. That's
That's
really where your sense of identity really is formed in those young years. So one thing I just wanted to quickly share actually was, before I ever speak with a guest, I always pull a tarot card. So I'm
yeah.
super spiritual, and the one that came up today was all around strength and speaking your truth. So obviously, sorry, you can't
Oh,
see that, but I
yeah,
did just think that was really interesting that that came up, because I
definitely.
know for you, like, you're so humble, Anna, and that's what I love as well. But actually, what you've been through would have been quite traumatic at those young years, and I don't think you give yourself enough credit for the transformation that you've created, even for yourself, let alone your clients, probably without an environment to support that transition, which I'm assuming as well. So I mean, you know, first of all, I really want to applaud you for doing that work yourself, but also then using it as something that you can then go on and inspire and help others. Like, that's to be celebrated, absolutely. But
Thank you.
what would a typical week look like for you in that
Yeah,
space?
before I go into that, I just want to say thank you so much. I did uh, had a lot of therapy, to be fully transparent. So I know what it's like to get therapy for that, for different things. And to come first react on your identity, the identity example of corporate you gave. I think you don't have to be an elite athlete to resonate with my story. I think it's corporate, but also if you've been in the army and you retire from the army, if you maybe have graduated and you don't know that was the goal in your life, and then you graduated and you don't know where life's going to take you next, or you retire, for example. I think there are a lot of non-elite examples of stories that could resonate with mine, which is why I think which is why I want to share my story and help others, because I think I can be helpful in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's whenever you're at that crossroads, isn't it? And
Yes.
everything that you've built your foundation on, your sense
Yeah.
of self, your identity, your daily routines, your habits, your
Yeah.
mindset is suddenly taken away from you. So this could
Yeah.
also apply to people that, you know, are getting a divorce,
Yeah.
or like you say, have left education,
Yeah.
that have been quite institutionalized and everything's been very regimented.
Yeah.
I think it can apply to such a broad spectrum of people, actually, when you really think about it. And yet, when these crossroads happen, when these points in our life happen, we just feel like we just need to suck it up and get on with it. But
Yeah.
actually, let's acknowledge that's a trauma in itself. Like, that's monumental. So that's what I love with the work that you're doing, is that you're recognizing that, and you're
Yeah.
then applying these principles to really help people not only just survive and get through and head down, but actually come out of it the other side a better person, a more empowered person, a happier person, and really use those learnings and to connect with yourself and find your new identity. I absolutely love the work that you're doing. But yeah, so what would you say that typical week then? What was that like journey for you in terms of like a typical week, and then suddenly afterwards it's like,
Yeah,
completely different.
I'll take you through like my experience.
Yeah.
A typical week, and I used to be in primary school back then, would be on Mondays I would go to school like normal days. Our school would start at, I believe it was 8:30, and then until 4. And we had the break was a bit longer because we went home for like lunch. But I would leave an hour earlier because I had to go to training and I had to go by car then. So my parents would drive me every day. Yeah, it was a commitment for them as well. And I would train on Monday evening. I would train 4 hours until 8. Then I would go back home, do the same on Tuesday, go to school, leave an hour earlier, and train again 4 hours in the evening. Then on Wednesdays, we had a shorter day at school. So it was basically school was until 1, and then I would go home and go prepare for training, go to training, train 4 hours again in the afternoon until 8. Then I would stay in the city I was training with a friend from gymnastics, because we had morning training on Thursday morning. So in Thursday, I trained twice a day. On the morning, it was probably 2 or 2.5 hours, I think, 3 maybe. And then in the afternoon again, 4. And then on Friday, it was a normal day. So went to school, then left an hour earlier to go to practice, trained 4 hours in the afternoon until 8. And then also stayed in the city because on Saturday morning, we had a morning training, 4 hours. And Saturday in the afternoon where we're off.
Oh, they actually gave you some time off. That's good.
Yes, they did.
Oh,
And
you
sometimes
have 5 minutes.
yes. And sometimes we either, I think we had Wednesdays off or Sundays off. We had 1 day off a week. But if we trained Wednesdays, it was Wednesday evening, and if it was Sunday, we trained in the Sunday afternoon. And sometimes we trained twice a day on Sunday. Yeah,
That's insane, isn't it? That is such an intense container. I mean, the pressure on your family to obviously support you in running you around where you need to be, but also to not have you around. I can't imagine as a mother not like, forsaking my children to 2 nights a week so that for the love of what they do. Essentially, that's a huge testament to their support, which is great. But I just can't, it's mind-blowing to me, having got 5 children. I know that my kids, if I said screen time 4 hours a day, I think they'd be on it. But if I was like, you've got to go do something physically active 4 hours every day, they would absolutely die. They would just not be on it at all. So I guess
to be honest, gymnastics is a very intense and very like you have to put a lot of training hours in to get the results. A lot of repetition, like make it muscle memory almost, and program your body to do the tricks and the things whenever, even if you, for example, be waking up at night. So that's I know with like team sports, it's a lot less hours if you do like elite sports, but I chose the hard way.
And is that something that really came from you, that desire to do it, but also do it to the next level? Where does that come from?
It's something I'm very from a young age, I've always been like, if I go for something, I will do it 110%. I asked my parents once, why did you put me into gymnastics? Or like, it was like children's gym. It wasn't like proper gymnastics then when I was 4. And they were like, yeah, were you always walking on your hands and you're always doing cartwheels and you're just a busy kid. So we thought we'd just put you in gymnastics. And then it started from like one hour a week, and then they saw I had talent, so it just gradually increased until I was training like every every single day, basically.
And it
Yeah.
would also, I imagine, be your diet as well. So it's not just your physical time and energy and your body. I imagine that there would have to be a lot of strict guidelines around what you were eating, when you were eating, and all of these things.
Yeah, that's one of the downsides of gymnastics, because it's a sport where you're judged based on your skills, but also on your appearance, because that, yeah, the lines, it's an aesthetic sport, basically, just like figure skating or ballet. It's something that aesthetics matter. So yeah, there was a lot of like strict guidelines on what to eat and definitely on what not to eat, which yeah, haunted me back when I quit my elite gymnastics career. Yes.
So what made you quit at 13 to really dial it down a notch and just, or walk away from it entirely? What happened?
Well, I didn't walk away from it entirely, because as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, I did start and quit 2 more times because I just couldn't let go of the sport. When I was 13, it wasn't entirely my decision. My parents at some point were just done with it. At that moment in time, my sisters were, I have 2 younger sisters, they were also engaged in gymnastics, not as much as I did, but they were doing like proper gymnastics, and at some point they were just done with it. They didn't feel like it was healthy for me. I was afraid for a lot of things, and I would get more and more anxious for like some skills that I needed to do, and it wasn't enjoyable at that moment in time. So they decided for me, as I was still a kid, because I was 13, 14 at that moment, that it was enough, and we're just quit elite gymnastics. Yeah.
Wow, that's a tough call to make as a
Yeah.
parent. Like, I can only imagine the weight of that decision, because you do feel that sense of responsibility to advocate for your children versus what they want and what you know to be true and to be right as an adult, with somebody that's obviously got a little bit more life experience. So presumably they could see this level of control wasn't good for you. How did you feel about that? How did you respond to that?
I think at that moment in time, I was okay with it, because, as I mentioned, it wasn't enjoyable for me at
Yeah,
that moment. I was so afraid for everything, and I got more afraid, like increasingly afraid, that it was just not enjoyable.
yeah,
So I think at that time I was fine with it. I could see where they were coming from,
yeah.
being as young
That-
as I was. And
wow.
yeah, I was like, yeah, I think it's a good decision.
And do you agree
Um,
now on
yes,
reflection? Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes. Of course, there's always the what if. What if I did stay in gymnastics? Would I eventually got onto a higher podium? Maybe did some internationals. I don't know. I did international competitions, but maybe some more. I don't know. Where would it have led me? But yeah, I think it's a good decision regarding my health that we quit at that point in time. Yes.
yeah. I completely agree, because like I've said, as a coach, it's really alarming. Like, those years are just so important in your development, but also in your sense of self. And like you say, if you were becoming hyper aware of, just things that you shouldn't even be worried about at that age, then it's, just fantastic that your parents were really empowered to make that tough call.
Yep.
So what happened then when you obviously sort of went back into normal life, as you say? Were they able to support you with that transition, or were they
No.
just, probably burnt out by it themselves as well, and just probably wanted to move forwards?
Um, you mean my parents supported me, or
Yeah,
did
were
I get
they?
some support from gymnastics?
Yeah, well, both, I guess. What did that transition look like? What support was available to you, and what do you wish that you had on reflection?
Yeah, well, I of course my parents tried to support me wherever they could, but it's such a unique experience in some way, I guess, where you feel like people don't understand you, because I think it shows that you asked me the question, can you please explain what your week looked like, and what commitment you had to put in. And I think that's the biggest thing, that people just don't understand why on earth you'd go so many hours a week to a gym to do something that's so hard, and you still love, and that's a very hard thing to understand for others who haven't been through that, and to put your sport at like the first place in your life entirely, and everything else becomes second and third and so on.
Yeah.
And to really have that goal in mind that you want to achieve, which maybe never happens or might not happen. And I feel like I was very lonely in that sense, because I didn't feel understood by anyone.
Yeah.
Even my parents really tried to support me. And then the structure, I went from that very regimen kind of life to going to secondary school, which is a transition in itself.
Yes.
I quit. That's from primary school to secondary school. I quit. I had no structure in my life from all the practices. I had so much free time. I didn't know what to do myself. Honestly, I sat on the couch and I was like, what what on
Yeah.
earth do I do? And so much time to think as well, because there was so much time spare now that I didn't know how to fill. I
That's
felt,
something that I find really interesting. I've actually circled that because I did
yeah,
wonder how that would impact you in terms of finding your voice and connecting to yourself and really being able to tap into your desires when you've never been allowed to explore that before. So one thing as women that we tend to do, either as mothers or as just as women, and in this sort of day and age, is that we lose that connection to ourselves and what our goals and desires are, what our voice is, what our values are, because we're constantly being told by society, and being led by our children and other things, what we should be doing. We have all of these expectations on. So I imagine those years where you were finding out what your likes and dislikes were, what, really sort of feeling into and evolving your personality, you weren't allowed that freedom because you were being told, this is what you need to do, this is what comes first, this is what's important. And yeah, I'm fascinated with how that would have affected you moving, as you said, into a time in high school where it is, you're still finding your voice, you're still sort of, so insecure and so just unsure about everything at that age, trying to fit in with your peers and finding your way in the world. How did that feel?
lonely,
Yeah.
very, very lonely, because as you mentioned, in those very critical years of development, as I've later on learned in my, because I'm a licensed PE teacher, and I've learned the development of children, and I was like, oh, well, so that's what I should have learned
Yes.
during those years.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen. No, I wasn't allowed to feel. I wasn't allowed to have an own opinion. I wasn't allowed to think for myself. I wasn't allowed to, or someone else told me whether it was good or wrong or needed to be better. So all those things that you develop as a kid during these primary school years, I really missed. And that's what I noticed during high school in hindsight, that I didn't know what I liked. I didn't have a voice. I had the feeling that everyone expected things of me that weren't realistic. I set the bar way too high for myself, because realistic goal setting, I didn't know how to do that because others were always setting my goals before. I didn't know what to wear because everything was always so strict, and so not strict, but so prescribed in a
Yeah.
way, that how you behave, what you dress, how your hair looked like, etc., that all of a sudden I was expected um to have an own opinion and an own vision and an own,
Yeah.
yeah, idea
Yeah.
about that. And that's not something that developed overnight, because you take your whole primary and also high school years for that. So that was really something that I really struggled with, and I felt really lonely because I didn't had peers that had gone through the same experience, so I
Yeah.
couldn't really resonate or relate to anyone. And I wish I would have had some resources for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So even with like your sisters, like you're saying, going through that experience too, but maybe not at the same level, did you find any comfort in that? Or was it like, no, they just didn't get it because they weren't, they weren't my age, they weren't at exactly the same stage, they weren't maybe at the level that you were, or were you able?
Yes, I think it's what you mentioned, and besides that, they're your sisters. So we have a good bond, the three of us. But it's that age range, like primary school, secondary school, that I was beginning in
Yeah,
secondary school, which means they were still in primary school, so they were really young. I mean, I was
yeah.
only 14, so and we have an age gap of 2.5 years between us. So I mean, they were just very young. So yeah,
And
talking about that
yeah,
was a bit difficult.
but you probably paved the way for them though. So that's really, although it doesn't feel good being the person that goes first, I imagine that if they had any of those issues coming up, that you were now that resource, which is fantastic. So I would love to know, because what I found as well is as you were talking and really, explaining how those feelings were, it really reminded me, and it's not about me, obviously, this episode is all about you, but of when I was in a really dysfunctional relationship and where I had, as you said, just lost all sense of self. Everything I wore was wrong, everything I said was wrong. And coming out the other side of it, it was like, I don't even know what I like. Like, I don't even know, like, I haven't been out in years. I don't, haven't connected with my friends at a deep level because you're always holding back. All of these things. And coming into that space suddenly as a now, I could literally do whatever the hell I want right now, but I don't know what that is. It's almost overwhelming with the weight of possibilities, isn't it? Because then that fear creeps in that you're going to do something wrong. If you've put all your energy into something for so long and it hasn't worked out, then what's to say that the next thing you do is going to be any better? Because it shakes your confidence at your core, doesn't it? That maybe you've done something wrong. So all of this work, like honestly, ladies, I think a lot of the time, like I say, we feel that we just need to, it's no big deal, we just need to get on with it. But actually, it is affecting you at a cellular level every time these things happen. So investing in this kind of support, somebody that's been there before and can really help you move through it, is so important. And we have to stop just trying to put on a brave face and get with it, get through it, sort of thing. So I'm so excited that you're here, Anna, because I think you can add so much value. So what I would love to know, I guess, just being like somebody that's really loves to encourage women to connect to that intuition, that sense of self, that feminine guidance. How have you, either as an adult or after that process, connected with that? How did Anna sort of evolve? And I love that your Instagram handle was actually Anna, wasn't it? I don't
Yeah.
know what was the reasoning behind that, but I bet it's some sort of connection around, even if it's on a subconscious level, to finding out who Anna is.
Well, I think I started my Instagram, I think now 6 years ago. But before that, I had a whole history of trying to find myself. I think my main coping mechanism was trying to seek control in everything I could find. Just that because it was so overwhelming, as you described earlier, that I just tried to find control in everything I could find, in the way I behaved, in my eating patterns, in everything. And I think finding Anna was with the help of a therapy, trying to let go of that control gradually, which took a lot of effort and a lot of inner strength. And I think the strength that I have shown in those therapy sessions, I think it also comes from what I've learned in gymnastics, to never give up, to always have goals in mind and to really strive for those goals. So I think that's one thing that really helped me, and the dedication is to let go of that control gradually, trying to ease the grip that I try to have on life, like out
Yeah.
of desperation almost, because I just didn't know how to function in the world. And you mentioned actually, Anna, the main reasoning, the regional reason behind that was I wanted to talk about me, and not me as ego, but as things that I beauty and fashion at that point in time, things that I liked, things that I wanted to share, maybe inspire others, and hopefully they could resonate with it and find some advice in it, and maybe I could help them. That was the main reasoning behind it, but very rationally. But I think on a subconscious level, it's indeed my blogging and content creating journey has really helped in finding myself as well. Yes, definitely.
Been very therapeutic, hasn't it? I imagine.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case for a lot of women actually that are in that coaching space. It comes from a deeper connection to the work that we're sort of trying to do. Essentially, you know, we've got that first-hand experience. We don't want to make anybody, you know, we want to ease that process for people going forwards, which I absolutely love. And again, you know, just so much admiration for the work that you're doing. It's so much bigger than it sounds when you're like, oh, transformation coach, and it's like, okay, like that sounds great, you know. But when you actually really dive into the kind of stuff that you're going to be doing, this is truly transformational. And I just absolutely love other heart-led women that are here to really make the best of what they've done, because there's a lot of people, Anna, that I have to be like real talk, that wouldn't have done what you've done, and they would have used that as an excuse. I get this a lot when I've got a podcast interview tomorrow actually, and you know, I'm I am certainly not an Olympic or elite athlete in any way, but again, I had a very controlled childhood, sadly childhood full of abuse. It's a lot of things that meant, again, completely disconnected from my sense of self. So as an adult, I've really felt that the weight of that importance, that in me doing this work and in me finding myself, it gives my children permission to do the same. They get the best of me. It means, you know, better service for my client. And it's just so important. But I think I just resonate with the work that you're doing so much, because I have so much admiration for the fact that, like my story, not similar necessarily, there'll be common themes, but ultimately, you know, we had every excuse not to succeed, every excuse to be a bitter person, an unhappy person, a person that goes out and just resents everybody for everything. But instead, what you've done is taken that pain, taken the learnings from that experience, and you've almost got gratitude for some of that, because you can really think, do you know what? Yeah, this was horrendous, but this bit has really given me, you know, it's shown me what's possible. It's shown me that when I put my mind to something, I'm unstoppable. Actually, I can achieve the impossible. When I've got that clear vision, you know, nothing has taken me off course. I've got strength and resilience that others don't have. Like, and that's what I just, you know, I really resonate with your story on, is that it's like almost a kindred spirit, in that it's something that everybody else would have given up, and you haven't. So I totally applaud you for that. So for anybody who is going through that right now, or some sort of transition, as we said, there's so many ways that this can be applied. What would you say are like the main things that they need to be focusing on right now? So if somebody's just experienced a divorce, or like you say, left the forces, or just left prison even, I don't know, because that's very regimented, isn't it? I was thinking that the other day, chuckling to myself. Yeah, I imagine when you're in prison and they're telling you what to eat, sleep, and everything else, that must be quite a transition when you come out. You know, where should they start right now?
Well, I think the most important thing is to connect with yourself. I find that you mentioned gratitude. I'll circle to that, back to that later, but I think it took me a lot of years, but now I can take the gratitude out of what I've been through, and see the positive. Because the thing that I want to highlight is I think there's a common misconception that the bad things in life you want to push away, you don't want to think about them, and you just want to get rid of them. Whereas I would like to think as they eventually also make you to the person you are right now, and you can choose what you want to do with that experience. And or rather than try to get rid of it, embrace it, try to take the pain out of it, and try to see, like almost as gratitude, as you describe it, what you can learn and what positive you can take out of it. And I know that's hard, that's easier said than done. It took me years and years and years, but if you embrace it, and if you see it as a part of yourself that you can build upon, then it's not something you have to get rid of, and it's something that you can that can be within you, and happily and how do you say that, peacefully can be within you. And then if you nurture that, and if you give it love, then it just can be there and can live there, and you can, yeah, it doesn't have to cause harm. So I think that's a state I'm in right now. And I think what helped me with that is a lot of self-love, a lot of journaling, a lot of meditation, taking the time for myself, to be present, to check in with myself, how I'm feeling. If I'm sad, then I'm sad. Well, I don't have to put a brave face on, because that's just the way I'm feeling right now. And surrounding yourself with good friends and family you can talk to, and who can support you, and who you're not afraid to show what you're feeling. I think that's very important.
Absolutely, because there's a lot of shame and guilt and
Yes.
really negative emotions that can get caught up with these situations otherwise. But I absolutely love what you just said about essentially turning your pain into power. I believe that's how you truly move forwards in life, is that you can acknowledge the pain that you've been through and the journey, which inevitably, us women, we've been through some shit.
Yes,
Like
and
most women.
we're
Yeah.
expected to put a mask on and just smile and be happy, and that's not who we are. As our men, to expected to always be brave and never show emotions. I think that's just two stereotypes we need to get rid of, because
Yeah.
we're humans, not robots.
Absolutely. And I think it's also, like you say, it's healing those parts of you that have been, traumatized and have been through the mill, but it's also acknowledging that's part of your journey and almost making friends with it, making peace with it. I love that, what you just said. And I think that's how you claim your power, because a lot of the time, these things sort of lurk in the background, and they are the thoughts, the truths that come back to self-sabotage us, that stop us from really speaking out, being visible, moving forwards with confidence, because we know we've got all of this baggage in the background. But actually, if you can acknowledge it and make peace with it, it no longer has power over you. It no
Yeah.
longer can be in your ear saying like all of these negative things and keeping you small, because you can say, like you say, I see you, thank you, we've been on this journey, but I'm okay from here. I don't need you to keep me small, keep me protected any longer. Like, let's just leave that in the past, take the learnings and move forwards. And I really support that as women, we need to, instead of trying to hide those things, like say, put on a brave face, it's about owning it, wearing that almost with pride, that, you know what, I've been through some shit and I'm on the other side of it, and I'm not letting it hold me back. Like, that's what we need to take away from these situations. So I have so much respect for that. So one thing I love that you do is, obviously when you work with your clients, it's really practical, tangible things that they're doing daily to help them through that process. Because a lot of the stuff, when you talk about mindset, it's almost such like, it's big concept, big picture stuff. People can't really get to, for a person like me and probably yourself, like, I'm a doer. I need a list. I need things. I need, stuff that I can follow, particularly when you're in that state where you are feeling quite unsure and uncertain. Having the comfort of like practical things that you can do daily is really, really great. So what would you say are maybe some tips for things that people could practically do like today? A
Yeah.
morning routine is something that you're very big on, aren't you?
Yes, I am, and that has a reason, because I talked about like more general things, like self-care, self-love, healing, but those are indeed like more general, more abstract kind of things, more, if you want to call them. But I like practical things, as you mentioned yourself as well. So I think a morning routine is something like really, really practical that you can just try to create for yourself, to set you up for the day, to start your day positive, fit it with things that are serving you, and filling with things that are helping you, which is really, really important, along the things that you might need to do. You might need to do a school run, you might need to get your kids out of bed, but it's also important that you fill that with things that are important for you, because it it makes you a better person. And these kind of routines, habits, and realistic goal setting is really something that um, helps you with the small steps, and many small steps will eventually result in a big step. and a big transformation. So I'm really big on trying to make it really practical and really tactile, almost, to see that you can see progress on a smaller scale.
And what are the kind of results that your clients can expect? Like, I mean, first of all, I absolutely resonate with what you're saying about control. I think it's owning the fact that one of my drivers in life is control, and inevitably, if you've been through some shizzle, having that element of control is what, you know, lessens that fear. It invokes that feeling of safety. Is if you have control of small parts of your day, then you feel empowered to take on the rest of the world, because you know that you can do it. So for me, I actually, and as you said about the morning time, the school run is my time for me, believe it or not. I always fill myself up with gratitude because I love the walk to school with the kids. You know, that's basically my whole reason for being, as being a mother. So you know, just seeing their little faces, knowing that I can, you know, no biggie but create miracles, you know, no biggie, and it fills me up with gratitude. So that's amazing. And then on the way home, I've got my podcast in my ears, anything good to kind of nourish my soul. So that is like the highlight of my day, actually, the school runs, I have to say. But yeah, so I love that. So what kind of other, you know, what kind of results can do your clients sort of typically, what shifts happen when they start to implement this stuff?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you realize you have a choice. I think that's the number one thing, that feeling stuck into a world and you want to transition to a new world. First of all, I think it's important that you have clarity on what you want to achieve and make it really like concrete, almost, by visualizing and meditating and writing on it. But then it's the almost experiencing that you have a choice, and you have a choice to live a different life, which I think is the beginning of your journey, basically. And then there are all kind of things in place for like seeing what kind of thoughts are holding you back at the moment, what kind of habits are holding you back at the moment, how can we implement things that will set you up for like those little steps which eventually lead to transition, in terms of habits, routines, and realistic goal setting. Because as I've said in my story, I know firsthand what it's like to have unrealistic goals and always set yourself up for failure. So I think that's also really important to discuss that, and to learn how to set realistic goals. And I think those things together with knowing that you have a choice, and also have some tools in your toolbox on how to make the choice and how to make the change and how to step forward and how to progress and feel empowered and take care of yourself, I think will lead to the transformation you're seeking, and that's what they can expect.
Oh, I love that. It's so important. So obviously, Annie, you've got this drive inside you that you've always had, that energy to do more, to be all you can be, those sort of things. Where does that energy go now? Is that into your coaching?
Yes, well,
you don't lose that, do you? Once you're a high achiever, you're always a high achiever. So I just wondered, like, where does that energy go now?
No, definitely. Yes, in my coaching, because I really, really love to help. As I mentioned in the beginning, very briefly, I started out I have a bachelor's degree in physical education, so I'm a trained teacher. And my career path went another way, but eventually now in coaching, it comes all together, like everything comes together, basically. And I really love that. I'm very ambitious. I'm always looking for other ways to serve, other ways to help. But yeah, I think you can agree with that. Helping others just gives you so much energy, and seeing other people happy. I remember in high school, I used to be a tutor. I don't know if you call that in English too, but I used to, I used to help when I was in the exam years. I used to I used to be a tutor in mathematics for the first and the second years students, and I always loved when she came up to me and she said, "Oh, I got such a high grade for my exam," and she was so happy. And yeah, that's I still feel that when I help others.
Yeah, they call it the double blessing actually in
Mm,
coaching, and it really is, because it's therapeutic for you, but also,
yeah.
like you say, just getting that energetic, um, just validation and
Yeah.
everything else. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I had when I early on in my therapy years, the therapist would say to me, "Oh, but I learned so much from you as well," and I would always be like, How?"
Yeah,
But I really, really get it, and it's a mutual, like, how do you say that, learning curve. You
yeah.
always learn something from your clients, and you always they enlighten you, and you enlighten them, and it's yeah, it's a
It's like a beautiful
mutual.
collaboration, isn't it?
Yeah,
In
almost.
coaching. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that you have, healed your pain and found a way to make peace with it, and also then move forwards in a really constructive and positive way, that you've got that great connection with what you've done, but also that it's tapping into your natural traits and drivers, because I have no doubt that that's the key to a successful, sustainable business that
definitely.
really does light you up, avoids burnout and all the things. It's because you're living your purpose, which I absolutely love. So if anybody obviously wants to do this work, and I am an absolute advocate that you must at some point, ladies, do this work, to really move forward as an empowered female, how can they work with you right now? What have you got going on?
Yeah, so now I have my signature 6 week setup for success. That's a 6 week course where you have weekly one-on-one coaching calls with me, and of course I will be available if you have any questions in between those coaching calls, and we will talk about everything that I've already mentioned. So setting you up for success in limiting beliefs, in mindset, habits, goals, and routines, filling up your toolbox so you know that you have a decision in making that transition, but also have the tools to implement it. So that's my 6 week one-on-one course that I have at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Anna. I'm going to pop all your details in the show notes, so that obviously any women that are just, you're speaking to their soul right now, which I imagine will be most of us, I have to say, when you really think about it. But thank you so much for your time. I am so grateful to have you here. So honoured to share this space with you. And yeah, have a great day. Thank you for listening to this episode. It's been amazing to share this time with you, and I feel honoured to be part of your journey. If you've loved what you've heard, had an aha moment, or found value in this episode, then please do like, comment and share. I would love to connect with you on Instagram and Facebook, so come and find me, and I look forward to helping you build your epic life.